Hello, everybody. Really glad to have you guys all here today joining us for our webinar on making email and social your content dream team. I think we can all realize that there's great need for content right now, ongoing need for great content right now. So really relevant topic. And, ultimately, it's a great partnership here between OfferPop and Movable Ink, two great companies coming together to talk about these two items, and specifically how those two different departments, email or social, work together to become that content dream team. So you might be asking yourself, who's that voice talking to me? My name is Jeff Soriano, and I'm the Senior Director of Demand Generation at OfferPop, and I'm actually going to be your moderator today. We already got our first question from the audience, so I actually want to let everybody know that, yes, this webinar will be recorded today, and we will be sending out an on-demand version. So you guys who are, as you said here, helps inform your note-taking strategy, don't worry, you will be getting a copy of this in your email very soon. Really excited to have with me today Jack Gibbs, who is a visual UGC strategist at OfferPop, as well as Lauren Lynn, who's an account manager at Movable Ink. These are two experts in the space who are really going to help us get into the nitty-gritty of how we actually do this. So we're going to be doing a Q&A with them towards the end of this. So when we get there, I'll let those guys kind of do their introductions of themselves. But before we get kind of into the webinar itself, let's just kind of go through some of the house cleaning. So the agenda for today, we're really going to start talking about just the landscape and then ultimately about how you leverage user-generated content, how you ultimately connect email and social to increase that engagement, and then we're going to do this Content Dream Team Roundtable with Lauren and Jack. Obviously, we want you guys to participate in this, so if you have questions, you guys can actually enter those questions in. We will be doing an audience Q&A towards the end. As well, if you want to participate on social, you'll see down here at the bottom of the screen, we have our hashtag, social email. Please, guys, anytime you want, call out any of the great stuff you hear, ask us questions. We're really looking forward to making this the best possible webinar for you guys and providing the most valuable information. So I think we're just going to do a little bit of level set, and I don't think I'm going to be blowing anybody's minds here, but there's no question that there's a really big battle for consumer attention right now. It's getting harder and harder for people to actually see the messages that you guys are creating. It's getting harder and harder to get visibility. The inbox is getting filled. The social feeds are moving so quickly. It's just, as a brand, you're creating really great stuff, but obtaining that visibility is a challenge. And it goes back to, you need to really focus on creating authentic, relevant, personalized campaigns that are focused on really great content, but it can't be a singular channel thing. It needs to be an omni-channel thing. And that's really, again, what we're going to focus today on in this webinar, is how you take the social and the email and the omni-channel aspect of that from both producing and delivering relevant content to how do you actually create it. So you guys are looking at this slide here. I think it's relevant to say, again, I don't think I'm blowing anybody's mind, but we're really looking at this and saying people are checking social 17 times a day, which actually, to me, even seems somewhat low, and people are spending 6.3 hours a day checking email. And when we dig into these stats a little bit, what's interesting is on the social side is a lot of people sit around and talk about things like millennial marketing and stuff like that, but the reality is the age demographic for the people who are checking their social this often ranges from 25 to 54. So your target audiences are really leveraging social. And when you think about the 6.3 hours a day spent checking email, that actually breaks down to a pretty even split of about 3 hours in work email and about 3 hours in personal email. And I think we're all guilty of checking our personal email during the day, right? So it goes back to, as a brand, how do you potentially prioritize this email that you're sending through to compete with that urgent work email that somebody also has to pay attention to? So it's clear. People really see value in these channels. They're spending a lot of time in there. So when you consider like how much time they're actually spending in these channels, it makes a lot of sense to actually integrate your efforts so they're really working together rather than competing. But the reality, again, is that even though people are spending so much time in these channels, there's a lot of clutter, there's a lot of junk. If you think about how much content is being created every day, it greatly outnumbers the actual hours you have time to consume it. So this is going back to you as marketers and saying, how do you create that fun, that fresh, that relevant, that personal content that ultimately drives people to want to spend time with you? So that leads us to the two challenges: creating compelling content, creating enough content. So looking at the first, how do you create compelling content? How do you actually get people to spend time with your brand? And then, how do you create enough fresh content? Again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the shelf life of content is getting shorter and shorter. You're not seeing the same thing in your social feed over and over again. Well, maybe perhaps if it's an advertisement, maybe, but if you're thinking more about just like generally, you're not seeing that content over and over. When you think about these challenges, though, it raises a little bit of that chicken and the egg. So which of these challenges do you actually tackle first? Do you need to create a ton of content, or do you need to create a really compelling campaign? So this is what we're going to actually discuss, and this is how OfferPop and Movable Ink are going to talk about how these two channels work together to solve those challenges that we discussed and help you understand a little bit of the chicken and the egg dilemma. So we're going to give you guys a little bit of background on each of our companies and how we fit into this. So if you guys aren't familiar with OfferPop, or even if you are, we have a platform that is essentially built to provide marketers with the ability to create really awesome campaigns, fun campaigns, that ultimately get people really excited and inspired to participate. And the output of that is the content. It's the user-generated content. So to give you kind of a clear example of what I'm talking about and tell a good story here around it, I want us to look at a campaign that People magazine ran. I would say that most of us are pretty familiar with the Sexiest Man Alive edition. Unfortunately, I haven't made the cover yet, but I'm still working on it. But this is an area where they said to themselves, this is something that people are aware of, but we can do more. We can be reaching more people. And so rather than necessarily saying, okay, let's create a campaign and just push this product down our throats, they said, let's do something fun. So they actually decided to create a meme generator. And looking at the meme generator, they said, let's actually have people decide for themselves, like, what is the sexiest blank alive? So it's important for us to call something out here. And it's specifically that they're giving their audience a very specific action. And this goes back to how do you drive the quality of the content, but they're saying to somebody, we want you to do exactly this. It's a very clear direction. Next, what they're looking at is saying, like, here are some really good examples of what you can do. So, sexiest hubby alive, sexiest girlfriend, this is sexiest bulldog, right? These are all really fun things. It inspires people, gives them ideas. Next, they show that this is a simple process, right? This isn't just like, oh my God, you need to take a picture, you need to put copy on top of it. It's as simple as uploading a photo, fill in the blank, and share your sexy cover. And last, they have a very specific call to action here. And that's where they're saying create your cover. And that would pop up a modal that essentially allows you to upload from Facebook, upload from Instagram, upload direct, whether that's from a computer or a phone or a mobile device. But in there, they're also asking you to do something like, what's your name? What's your email address? So there's a certain amount of acquisition that's going on in there. But lastly, there's an important aspect of this, and I apologize if you can't read it, the text is a little bit small. They're actually asking to repurpose that content. Because again, at the end of the day, user-generated content is owned by the people who create it. You as a brand have to go back and ask for permission to repurpose it. So again, in this campaign, they're very specifically saying, how do we engage people? Well, who doesn't want to be the sexiest blank, whatever? They gave very clear instructions, and then they ultimately put together a form that allowed them to get back the email acquisition as well as the rights to use the content. So how this plays into the combination of the social media marketer and the email marketer, and how I'm going to lead this into then having Movable Ink talk about their platform and what they're providing, is that it's really a process. So it kind of starts with the idea that the social media marketer might put together a really great campaign that they push out. So again, the people example, where they're trying to get something. And that could be they're trying to get content, so the user-generated content. They're trying to get people to participate. They want to get people to spend time with their brand. They want awareness that the edition's out. They want to get emails for acquisition. They want to get customer data. And they want to get consent. Again, then with our platform, you curate that data, right? You get the rights management, you tag the content, so you can label the content, you identify the best content, and you approve the content, you moderate it, and then it gets to the ability to use it. So now the social marketer can put it back into some sponsored posts. They can use the data that they got to do, a lookalike buy or a custom audience. The same way that the email marketer can now take that content and put it into their emails. They can use the data that the social person had to segment their database. Who's actually spending time with this stuff? They can personalize the segment, and they can use the email from the acquisition program to actually engage those people more. And that's where the email marketer can then go back and do their own get. They can push that same campaign. So they can use that UGC. They can get more participation, time with the brand, awareness, get more customer data, and ultimately drive them more consent. So that's a little bit about the OfferPop platform and how it kind of fits into this. So what I'd like to do now is actually hand it over to Lauren to give you guys some background on the Movable Ink platform and how it plays into that process. So Lauren, take it away.
Thanks, Jeff. Hey everyone, happy St. Patrick's Day. Hope you're all wearing your green, and thank you so much for joining. I also wanted to mention that we're working on fixing the link to the Build a Better Newsletter ebook right now, and that should be up and running very soon. All right, so to give you a little bit of background on Movable Ink, Movable Ink is a contextual experience engine that allows you to target users based on their context at the moment of open, and serve an experience in email that is hyper-personalized by implementing one dynamic snippet of code into your existing HTML. So we know that email is one of the top channels for ROI. For every $1 spent on email marketing, the average return is $44.25. And what we've actually found is that by including Movable Ink in emails and adding contextual elements, you can increase that return by more than double. We've talked with a lot of our clients, and these are some of the main challenges that they face in the media, publishing, and entertainment vertical. Rising above the noise to make a real connection. So, users are constantly being bombarded with advertisements and promotions all day, every day. Their inboxes are overflowing, and they're hit with tons of social media messages from all sorts of platforms: Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the list goes on. Another challenge that they face is creating personalized, relevant experiences and really being able to stand out in the inbox. And also consistently producing new compelling content without straining resources and time. which leads us into how email and social can unite as a powerhouse to help take on those challenges. So combining email and social to increase the email's conversion power with real-time engaging elements of social media. This can also help you get more bang for your buck by combining these channels to get the most reach. Some email subscribers may not be followers yet, and vice versa. Also, pulling in user-generated content, social feeds to reduce production time and strain on resources while providing a visually compelling experience. And also using the power of email and social to reinforce an omni-channel presence for your brand. So the way users are consuming content is changing and will continue to change with the widespread of different social apps and that people use on a daily basis. So your email marketing strategy also needs to adapt to that and be inclusive while staying on brand. Great. We have a few examples for clients that we've worked on with integrating social and email, starting here with Nickelodeon. For the Kids' Choice Sports Awards, they wanted to drive urgency and lead users to watch the show. So you can see at the top, originally there was a countdown clock, and this was counting down to the start of the show. And then during the show, they swapped out the countdown clock with a different message to tell users what was coming up during the show. And then they also swapped out the content for after the show, which showed when users could come back to watch the show live. But what's great about this email is that you'll see that they're pulling in live content here, so pulling in tweets and also Instagram posts. So they're collecting this user-generated content, and they're able to showcase this in real time in their email. Great, and so this is a great example here of not only collecting that user-generated content, but also being able to generate user-generated content. And this is from Ticketmaster. So for the Video Music Awards, they asked users to vote on different categories. So you have Best Female, Best Male, etc. And this is using our live polling functionality. So if I were to go click on Beyonce because she's my favorite, it would then deep link me into Twitter, where I would have a pre-populated text tweet where I could tweet out who I voted for. And within that deep link into Twitter, the hashtag they used actually went viral and was trending because of this email, which also led to reopens of the email and that 182% lift in open rate, which was fantastic for them. Something else that's great about this email is that they were able to collect information on what users voted for and then retarget them in the future. So if I voted for Nick Jonas, but it was Bruno Mars that won, they're able to follow up with a message accordingly. Great, and so this is just showing you what the deep link into Twitter looks like. So if I were to click on Taylor Swift, it would deep link me into Twitter and I could tweet out that message. And something to mention here about deep linking, so if I'm on my mobile device, I'd be able to tap into the email and this would take me straight into Twitter where I could then tweet out the message. And if I was on desktop, it would prompt me to log into Twitter and then I'd be able to tweet out that message. Awesome. And then this example from the Chicago Tribune. One second here. So we're pulling in the top 5 stories from their website. So this is automating from their website into the email. And they added this social component of being able to share out on Facebook, Twitter, and in email. And by doing so, they took out a layer of the users clicking on the article, going to the website, and then sharing. This provided for one-click sharing. So from this email, I could just tap on that Facebook button and share out to my audience on Facebook. And because of this, this led to a 200% lift in click-through rate. So these are some really great examples that we saw our clients using to help not only increase engagement, but also lead into that omni-channel presence and increase participation as well.
Awesome, Lauren. That was super informative, and I think that it really showed how these worlds of social and email are coming together and working together ultimately. So before we do dive into this, I do want to give you guys an opportunity just to introduce yourselves to the audience. So Jack, if you maybe just want to give a quick introduction, just be great to let kind of people hear from you.
Sounds good. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining. As Jeff mentioned, and I apologize, I have a bit of a cold today, that I've been here at OfferPop for about 3 of our 5 years of existence. I am a senior visual UGC strategist, which is certainly a tongue tie of a title, but the idea is that I support our brands, our senior brands, and enterprise companies as it relates to running digital activations, UGC campaigns, social promotions, etc. That can be both from the brand side as well as the agency side, but I'm a day-to-day point of contact for not only just a bundle of knowledge, but also kind of the best practices. So excited to be here today.
Cool. Lauren, you want to just give a quick intro? Obviously, we've already heard from you, but just a little bit of your background.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Lind. I am an account manager here at Movable Inc. I've been here almost 6 months now, and prior to Movable, I actually worked at OfferPop and have a lot of experience with visual commerce and UGC, so very excited to be joining this webinar today.
Awesome, guys. Thank you. So we're going to go into the Q&A here, and so Lauren, I'm actually going to start with you, because I think this is kind of where you were kind of going with with everything you were talking about. But there's a reality today that there are a lot of departments and a lot of companies where things are siloed. So the social marketer, the email marketer, they might not be working that closely. From some of those examples that you gave, could you dive a little bit more into what are the actual benefits that these people get from each other's work? So the output of the social marketer, the output of the email marketer, what are the benefits of them actually working together?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of times I'll hear from clients that the social team and the email team are very separate and they're not really aware of what each other are doing. But I think there's huge benefit to partnering and having this multi-channeled approach, because not only does this increase the likelihood of visibility, but you're also able to collect data from each other. So maybe you have users who are following you on Instagram and Twitter, but they're not email subscribers yet, or vice versa. So you'd be able to use the data that you're collecting on both the email side and the social side to combine those together and then target those users based on who they're following or what their interests are, and really, craft this messaging that's consistent across all of your platforms.
So that makes a lot of sense. There's obviously there's the idea, and we discussed at the beginning, this is very omni-channel. So to dive in that a little bit even into it deeper, Jack, maybe you could talk a little bit about what are some of the retargeting things or the targeting things that people can do on the social side. What aspects are available to them?
Yeah, I think there's, certainly every platform functions a bit differently. Facebook is a bit strange with the way they share user data, but the idea that if a consumer posts with a hashtag on Twitter or they upload a piece of asset, like in the people example, and we collect an email address, the more that they're continually interacting with the brand, the more data we're actually driving on that user. So you might have a John Smith with an email address and a social profile and an affinity for Nick Jonas. You can get all that type of information. The more info you collect, the better retargeting it gives you, but it may be a matter of, we have a lot of CPG clients and cosmetics specifically that do stuff just for New York Fashion Week. They might want to go across their entire social and email audience and say, all right, New York Fashion Week's coming up. Who are all the females 20 to 40 years of age that are focused on specifically Unilever brands in the tri-state area? And be able to pull that data and use that as a remarketing strategy is highly effective when you pulled them in from social initially.
That makes a lot of sense. And so when we then go and talk about what you guys are getting from each other, Lauren, a lot of what you guys have on the dynamic content side, is this ultimately providing that marketer, the ability to not only segment but deliver them more personalized messages because the content might be more tailored to them?
Yes, definitely, exactly. So once we're starting to collect this information, you're able to target those users on an ongoing basis. So this is bigger than one-off campaigns when you think about programs that can really help you create this process and allow you to continually collect content and then use that content to target users. So when they're opening their emails, they're seeing content that's relevant to them. And then on the social side, maybe you're collecting this user-generated content, and you can then repurpose that within the email and maybe in ads or also on your website. So in some of the ways that we've seen clients do this is collecting user-generated content and using that in their welcome series, or using that in their initial messaging to make users aware of their social feeds, and being able to show that UGC in real time.
That's actually a really good point, right? So when you go back and think about it, you're getting all these additional assets. I mean, I think us marketers, unfortunately, would agree that we're all feeling somewhat strapped for resources, whether it's from a budget perspective or a headcount perspective, and we need to create more and more content, right? Like, it's not like that's going away anytime soon. You guys just talked about the idea of repurposing these assets. Jack, what kind of campaigns potentially should someone actually be running to get more of the assets that they can actually repurpose?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, I'm certainly there's people on the phone today that are strapped for resources in ways that maybe you guys aren't even, that they might be an email marketer and a social media manager and a creative designer all in the same role. And that's certainly something where you have to start prioritizing. And I think the idea of this strategy that Lauren's discussing, that you kind of walked through in that Get Curate flow, is if you can run a contest or promotion or a meme generator, those that often include user-generated content submissions as the main call to action. You think of, submit your best pet photo contest. Babies, of course, always perform well, but even just simple tweet, caption this ridiculous photo, those type of fun interactive experiences create a nice loop of constantly flowing in content that you guys get to repurpose, and being able to have a library of different applications or templates to use all the time is super valuable to turn on in a matter of just an afternoon.
So if we take that and we think about the handoff, right, from OfferPop into Movable Ink, Lauren was talking about all these different assets. Someone might go, oh, but that's for social. Like, when you guys see the content coming out of social and you're putting it into your email programs, and you talked a little bit about this, like, are you generally seeing that content is not really just for social? It's very applicable in the email channel as well?
Yes, definitely. So, and like I mentioned before, this is especially prominent in a ton of welcome series emails to show users who have already engaged with your brand, to help with that initial process of welcoming users, initially with your brand, to show people who have already interacted and are already loyal to your brand.
So actually, it's great that you mentioned kind of the welcome email stuff. This is, again, Jack. So the idea of some of our hotel-based clients, so we're working right now with Hotels.com, and the idea of a nice welcome email with some relevant, rich, authentic content has been a huge request from them, and actually developed a full strategy for them around unboxing, unrooming for them as a hashtag, where they're asking consumers, when you actually go to your first visit and you open your hotel door, to take a quick 30-second video or a quick Vine video or Twitter video of your review of that room. So if you see people running around their room saying, this is awesome, can't believe I have a balcony looking over the river, all these different types of videos of users explaining and showcasing their experience with the brand, that has become this great loop where Hotels.com is taking all these great videos, actually embedding it onto product pages, embedding it on their website, but more relevant to you guys in Movable Ink is taking those great videos and pushing them out in an email and saying, great, we're excited to have you at the plaza. Check out these awesome videos of users who just stayed there last week.
That's awesome. Like, you're talking about like a little bit more of supporting the buyer journey, right? Like, what is the consumer journey? And that seems really awesome, but goes back to the idea of, the content needs to be quality then. And I don't think we'll shy away from this, but like, sometimes people think user-generated content isn't necessarily the best quality. So to that point, Jack, like, what are those strategies to kind of drive more quality?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a stigma around UGC and the fact that you get 100 photos and 90 of them are garbage. That's not necessarily the case, I don't think. Certainly there is the ability to have moderation, filtering capabilities. Always important to a marketer. You only want to be sending things out on your brand that looks great, is relevant to the rest of your consumer base. But the idea of being able to actually create a message that's clear is very important. So if you go back to that People magazine campaign, they had the exact user flow, some relevant examples you could reference. We've seen a lot of programs pushed out like that in this space. In addition, Hudson's Bay, one of our retail clients, actually took over several streets in Toronto and painted the streets, asked users to go up to them, put their shoes on these different blocks on the street, and post a quick shoe fee with the hashtag Stars on Stripes. So it was something that they created. It was sort of a content campaign that they pushed out with the main call to action for users to go take this specific action. The same way a brand like Doritos has their new spicy roulette chips, asking users to post with the hashtag burn selfie, where it's a very clear call to action. You can't always lead with exactly what you want. You have to certainly leave up some open-ended room for creative freedom, just like a meme generator for People magazine. But being able to kind of have this underlying idea of a very clear direction when you have that initial push is going to net you the most quality content instead of just tell us why you love our brand.
That makes a lot of sense, that people do need some sort of direction. When you think about the idea of what on-brand is for you, you have to go back and say to yourself, okay, this might not be like a photo shoot that we just did, but what we expect from the UGC is X, so I need to tell people what to do. So this goes back to the great debate for every marketer out there. There's quality versus quantity, and it's something that we battle all the time. And how do you get a ton of quality? How do you get a lot of quantity? So when building out kind of like a brand strategy or a content strategy that keep people engaged, and Lauren, are there any ways that you can really focus on the quantity of content that you would be able to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, definitely. So what I've seen when it comes to integrating social and email, when users are asked to submit a photo with a specific hashtag, a lot of the time when users are submitting to these contests, the quality is going to be, depending on how the messaging is phrased, the quality is going to be better than what you would expect. And while these are being pulled into maybe some galleries that OfferPop hosts, I think the beauty of using OfferPop is that you're able to go through and reject or accept certain pieces of content, which helps not only with the quantity but with the quality. So you're able to approve that content, and this really helps with the email marketer's role of not having to worry about, okay, do I want to use this content? Am I able to use this hashtag, or is this going to pull in some content that I don't want to be showing in my email? So the beauty of that is being able to work with OfferPop and already have that content curated and really ups the quality. So when you're pulling in that content into your email, it's already curated and ready to go for you.
I think you also point out a good piece around the specific type of content. You want to think about the long game as a marketer as well. Instead of just, there's one campaign we're launching right now, being able to, let's say, ingest a ton of UGC, whether it's photos, videos, or tweets, and start tagging it and securing the authority to repurpose it. You might not repurpose it right away. You might repurpose it a few months later. You might repurpose it a few days later, or even a year later. Being able to just have a constant library of pre-approved assets. Instead of having to go on Giphy or go on to a different website and purchase those photos, you can just go into your bank of pre-approved, rights-managed UGC assets and pull those in whenever you need them.
Makes a lot of sense, right? Because we're talking, again, we were talking about before, like the idea of resources and, do you have a designer? No, I don't, or when I need to get things approved. And so there's almost the aspect of sometimes you're running these campaigns and you're getting this content, and it's not about the short term, it's about the long term. Makes a ton of sense. So I want to kind of bring back a little bit of our chicken and the egg that we talked about before, and so now it goes back to this idea of having the great content or creating the great campaign. There are really big challenges that exist around gaining visibility for your programs. Again, it's just a reality that there's more content being created daily than people have time to digest. Lauren, maybe you could give us some good tips on how Movable Ink works with customers to actually drive more eyeballs on the messages. Like, how are they getting people to prioritize spending time with those messages?
Yeah, definitely. So I think a perfect example of this was the Ticketmaster campaign that we showed you, which, using relevant, authentic, and personal content, they were able to target users and have them vote specifically, and then retarget them, showing them that, hey, we know who you voted for, and we're following up with you in this email to tell you who actually won, or provide you with some sort of coupon or anything like that in the future. So I think by keeping that message relevant and authentic, you're then able to repurpose in the future. And also, I think this comes full circle with the Ticketmaster example, because not only were users going in to vote on the live poll, but then again, that hashtag was trending, which then loops into social, and it just really was beautiful and became full circle. So I think something that email and social can do together is use the information that they're collecting and then target them on social and in email, and really work together to drive those programs.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, the ability to leverage custom audiences and lookalike audiences, and again targeting specific people. If the message isn't relevant, if it's not aligned with something that they did, they're significantly less likely to pay attention to it. But if it's something they did, and you're targeting them with something that's very relevant, it's going to drive the eyeballs, it's going to drive the engagement, and it goes beyond a single touch. Which I think is a big obstacle for a lot of us today, is loyalty and advocacy is very difficult. So if you think about that perspective of it, Jack, from an eyeballs perspective, a lot of people think about social as an awareness top of funnel. Like, how does that play into maybe some of the more deeper in the customer journey around advocacy or even loyalty?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a few ways to tie to that. The ability to actually tie UGC to a purchase funnel and tie UGC to products is one very easy way to get a consumer quicker down that funnel, ultimately to a point of conversion. But when you're thinking of loyalty and those constant eyeballs, or even advocacy, even a simple thing like a contest where it's submit your XYZ video for a chance to win a trip to New York City. That might be the initial phase one. Phase two might be, all right, we've nailed down to our 4 or 5 finalists. That allows those 4 or 5 people to have a high level of affinity with the brand, feel very touched and connected to the brand, as well as the audience realizes that they're holding these users at a higher level, and allows them to vote maybe on that final round. Ultimately, one winner gets to be selected. We've all seen the idea of the Bud Light celebration, where there's a party for this one specific person. They're surprised. They have this great connection with the brand. You focus the consumer the entire time on the front end of it. Meanwhile, you have these 2-3 rounds of a social and digital campaign that is your constant touches back via email. And that's kind of what Lauren was talking about with being able to tell them who voted, or we noticed you voted on XYZ, and just having very, very personalized content and very personalized campaigns is important to getting that high level of affinity or loyalty.
Awesome. So I want to be conscious of time, and we have had some audience questions come in. So one of the first questions we got, and I think it ties back to a lot of what we were just talking about, the targeting and all of these different aspects of it, was there was a question about, what about data privacy? Are there any legal concerns that users' social data is used commercially? Jack, do you want to
Yeah, I can certainly feel that from our side. So a lot of the programs that we run are very much awareness acquisition programs to get information, to get email addresses, so the email marketer can actually push out to those users and get them interested in the brand. We've actually built out a very rigorous rights management process that's done a number of different ways to actually gain consent from a user to repurpose their content. So you can't just take a great tweet that someone put out and use it in advertisements, push it out as an Instagram ad, push it out X, Y, Z places. You have to actually have permission. Certainly, it's a very important piece, and we recognize it's a very important flow in the user journey. So we've actually built out a full rights management flow as well as ebook, which I'm certainly happy to share. But that data is always, again, owned by the brand. It's their ability to take those IDs and drill them down into specific audiences and segments to repurpose or re-advertise to.
So that's interesting, because you start to talk about things like third-party data, first-party data. So third-party data, obviously like a Facebook lookalike buy or something like that where it's Facebook's data. Lauren, for a lot of your customers, their email databases, that's first-party data. And any concerns there on how we're using that data? So again, you move somebody through the journey from a social campaign, you acquire their email, then you actually do an email program. And any concerns for you guys in that area?
Honestly, not that I can think of, because most of the time when we're using these social elements within the email, they've already gone through the process of being curated. So going through OfferPop, they're kind of already approved in that sense. So, and also we have the ability on our end. So if you're pulling in text tweets from Twitter, we'd have the ability to only pull in your own Twitter feed or only pull in your brand's own Instagram feed, which can sometimes also help out with any sort of worries that users have about privacy rules.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. Another question that came in, Lauren, this one's going to be for you because it's pretty functional. Is there a way to add the new Facebook like buttons inside an email?
That's a great question. So the answer to that would be no, there's no way to include the new Facebook like buttons inside an email. That's due to Facebook privacy rules and regulations. However, much like the Chicago Tribune campaign, we'd be able to web crop in social sharing buttons and then have users share out content on Facebook. But unfortunately, no way to actually include the button in the email itself.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you. There was a question that somebody had around the social aspect of, when we're talking about these social promotions, are we talking about organic or are we talking about paid? Jack, you want to answer that?
Certainly. I think that it has to be a combination of both. Even just any one of these digital promotions or programs that Lauren and I have been discussing, it's a 360 campaign. There might be emails, there might be advertisements on social, there might be advertisements for display, there might even be a billboard in Times Square. The idea that these are very much 360, and you need both a combination of organic and paid behind it. You even can take the idea of that People magazine example. Those covers of users having created their best or sexiest hubby or sexiest puppy alive, those are really great assets that actually the Time Inc. or People magazine team decided to instead turn around and use those assets as their paid and push those in Instagram ads because we saw those drive a higher click instead of branded content. So making sure it's a mix also, again, keeps your brand very much personalized and organic in that way.
Awesome. So this is more of a technical question, so I'll let you guys both kind of handle this, but Lauren, maybe you'll start. Technically speaking, how are you integrating your email and your social programs?
Yeah, so when it comes to integrating any sort of social curated feed, initially what we would do is we would have our conversation with OfferPop, and we would then need to talk about tapping into an existing API for any sort of gallery that they're hosting, pulling in a designated hashtag. So we'd begin to have a conversation, and then our team would be able to look at that API and work on pulling in that stream into the email itself.
That covers my bases too.
Awesome. So that makes it sound like it's not actually that difficult. If one person is able to clear it up in a couple sentences, that's great. Well, so I want to, we've got some really great questions from the audience. We've had a really great conversation today. I think we all learned a lot. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It was really, really great. I hope you enjoyed the Q&A. Again, we will be sending out an on-demand version of this after the webinar. And as always, if you guys have questions, you can always visit either Movable Links website, or you guys can visit us at the OfferPop website. We're always happy to talk to you guys if there's additional questions. Thank you again, everybody. Have a great St. Patrick's Day, and we will see you all soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.